I'd like to introduce to you Jesse Ricky, who's the technical director at Culture Hub, who's going to present on a tool that he's built for intervenue production called LiveLab.
Hi everyone. Billy, throughout the slideshow, I might ask you for some details of some of the events that we've done over the years.
Sure.
Thanks. So here at LiveLab, our motto is to hell with Cisco. That's what we're all about. Cisco is the manufacturer of a lot of VoIP technology, hardware, teleconferencing units. These are the kinds of tools we've been relying on for years, and we've always been frustrated with them. We love them. We can't do what we do without them, but we know something is better. LiveLab is the attempt to do all that with emerging live web technology. The live web is a term that Sean has coined. That is what we've adopted as being very much what Culture Hub's specialty is. That's what we are on about. And I'm going to explain why and the kind of tool that we're building, what we think is valuable for it. This is some images from some of our early explorations of telematic performance. Telematic, right? Things over the cable, over distance. One of our founders is a university in South Korea called Seoul Institute of the Arts, and we've done several events with them, taking performances at their venue spaces and performances at our venue spaces, and having the performers collaborate with each other. And we do that with a couple of different ways. This isn't actually with Seoul. This is with a group or another house in Manchester, UK called Contact. A lot of the same kind of technology, same sort of approach. In this case, we're taking the video feed from each location and projecting it on a scrim in the other location. So giving an opportunity for the performances to be in the same visual space from the audience's perspective, and to understand the collaboration more intuitively. Kind of a Pepper's Ghost sort of effect that you get. This is us setting up for one of the productions in the Ellen Stewart Theater at La Mama. Here is that scrim. You can see some of the performers in Manchester are practicing, rehearsing for that show while our musicians set up. You get the idea already that what's happening in Manchester and what's happening in New York are very synonymous. They're taking up the same space, right? And just by using some of these techniques, we're able to do that, make the venues feel like they're not separated by an ocean. In fact, they're right next to each other. They are the same space. So besides Digital Duets, we've done some other cool stuff over the years. This is an educational production that came from our interactions with Soul Arts called The Return. It's all about puppetry. So we had puppeteers in New York teaching a class in Soul Arts, and they made a piece together, doing the puppetry and then broadcasting the results to each other, a lot of chroma keying and basic broadcast sort of technology to lead the two productions on top of each other and tell the story in collaboration. A lot of brilliant prop making and use of projection design. This is something that Grayson made. It was not actually telematic, but it should be. I just want to bring this up because this kind of production is very much a part of what Culture Hub thinks is valuable and where we think this telematic art is kind of going. Grayson could probably explain it better, but I'll do my best. So we have two sites, two different interfaces. One for base command and one for the spaceship. Base command sees all the information about how the spaceship is doing, and they have to guide the captain of the spaceship to get through a wormhole and survive. Right? So the great thing about this is that this is interesting because of the poor communication between the 2 points. The communication coming from here to there is glitchy. It's indistinct. It's low fidelity. It's mixed with all this rugged audio and all this sort of electronic music. And the interface is not exactly intuitive. It's all about the difficulty of communication. It's very much like the play we saw this morning, right? Camera Obscura. The difficulty of the communication actually becomes a part of the intrigue, part of the game. And the brilliant thing about this is the way that they're using the audio and video and data between the 2 points to create a very immersive, very different kind of gaming experience, totally social, totally fun. So those are some of the more artsy productions that we do, but Culture Hub also, for the most part, what we really do is this kind of thing. This is distance learning. This is very much the groundwork of our practice. It's having educators in one country talking about their craft to students in another country. We do this a lot with Soul Arts. This is one of our founding missions. We've done it with lots of other groups around the world. This is a hip-hop community talking about emceeing with, I believe, Berlin? Yeah. And you can see the kind of production values that we have, the way we use our architecture. Different screens all along a long visual projection surface, different cameras from different points, revealing what's happening in our space, and then us mixing that and sending it back to the students in the other space. Distance education can be very, very valuable, very enriching. It's the kinds of communities and the kinds of education that you can take advantage of when you have different geographies working together. People have different cultural practices, they have different arts, they have different sort of ways of looking at the world, and when these two perspectives collide and are able to share vividly in real time and have these conversations, they enrich each other. We learn from our diversity. This is a dance place in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Teaching a group of dancers in.
I believe it might actually be in Minnesota.
Minnesota?
Because a lot of their work was geared towards, they have sort of a big dance community in Minneapolis, but when you get into the outer regions of the state, they don't have access to dance professionals, and so the Coles Center is one of their missions is to help distribute this through the public school system in their state.
These are the kinds of experiences that we do most of all. This is kind of our bread and butter. This is our most common kind of production. We often speak of them being like theater production, the entertainment, the performances, but these intercommunal discussions and practices and shared moments, that's really what we're all about. That's mostly what we do. Multi-venue production is multi-audience production. That's the main difference that makes it, that separates it, that makes it unique amongst all the other production disciplines. Right? I teach video production and television production at CUNY. We do a lot of theater production. We talk to gamers who do game production and all these different ways of creating an artful experience. What makes telematic stuff unique, more than anything, is having multiple audiences enjoying the show simultaneously. So here's to explain what that means for technical terms, this is just a schematic of something that we put together for a show. This is how I explain how to plug in all these machines to achieve this kind of thing. And you can see we have different capture units, but they end up in several different destinations. One going off to the internet for at-home, live broadcast, watching television. One going off to our collaborator in another country. And then several visual references just for our own local audience. Right? Serving 3 audiences simultaneously, each audience has their own needs. They need different audio mixes, different visual mixes, different kinds of experiences. But they're all brought together around the same shared moment. It's the real-time, multi-audience stuff that makes multi-venue production unique and really valuable. I'm going to approach that again at the end of the talk. So, we spend a lot of time staring at these kind of things. This is where this is the kind of tool we started out with. This is what we still have been using, but I think real soon we're going to finally be able to retire these robots. This is a teleconferencing unit. This is made by Cisco. It's a hardware solution based on VoIP protocols, voice over IP. That's just what you call this area of the industry. You can see it's rather robust, right? There's lots of good stuff going on here, but it has certain limitations, certain presumptions that makes it hard for every kind of production, particularly if you have different kinds of audiences with different kinds of needs. So pros and cons, the pros, high quality, great fidelity. You can really do true music. It's stereo. You might remember earlier, Sarah Weaver was talking about sending 8 channels. Can't usually do that with these machines. It's all about mixing down to 2 stereo channels, but they're very good quality, and you can really hear the timbre of the instrument. Low latency, sub-second, maybe like 200 milliseconds, maybe 100 milliseconds on a good day. That's really good for the kind of productions that we do. You can really have dancers play off each other. You can have musicians have a tender moment. Acting is very realistic. Performers really get into each other's craft. They can really collaborate in real time. And lots of ports. Look at all the ports. Right? Video, audio, lots of different things to access and to use in your venue space. When you want to present to multiple screens and really take one venue's architecture and transport it to your architecture, different options like this are valuable. But some of the cons, some of the problems. You have interface overlay. Okay. When you're building this kind of technology, you saw it in the Google Hangouts call earlier today. The interface and the media are taking up the same visual space almost all the time, right? You saw it had a little Google branding up there, a little bunch of widgets on the side, and you always had the self-view on the bottom. This kind of stuff is all over the place with teleconferencing technology. Fixed channels. You can't add more audio channels, right? It's inert. All the programming's already done. You can't add more video channels. You got 2 maybe. Wrong kinds of ports. You got a lot, but they're not the kind of stuff that you need, right? All these things. See, this is called Phoenix adapters, or the Phoenix audio ports. Try plugging in your soundboard into that kind of thing, you're going to have a hard time. They come with little tiny connections. It's made for a permanent install in a venue space that never gets moved, that's just used by certain kinds of people, usually in like a business setting. It requires technical contracts. This is the part that really kills me. If you buy these things, they're not just selling you a piece of hardware, they're also going to try to sell you like a repair contract or a service contract, and they're going to want to keep on getting those payments from you on a monthly or yearly basis. Right? They're really trying to make sure this. We experience this with a lot of the gear that we buy. Right? We're not allowed to fix our own MacBooks. We can't fix our own iPhones. Teleconferencing units are very much modeled in the same kind of philosophy. It's about making a business. Essentially, they're a costly one-trick pony. One big expensive piece of hardware that does one job really well, but just the one job. Right? It doesn't interrupt, it doesn't talk to your other gear, and it's not like you're buying this, investing all this money into something that can do lots of different things. I love the salad spinner, but it's one trick pony. It does the one thing, just gets your salad nice and dry. I prefer spatula. Right, spatula you can do anything with. Right? It's a much more robust, much more flexible tool. So essentially, teleconferencing assumes communication and business setting. It does not consider production or live performance. It's not just hard to work with, it's hard to play with. Right? It's not a real, flexible, robust, artistic tool. That's what Culture Hub has been wanting for a long time. Come in WebRTC. This has been a word I've been saying this has been an acronym I've been saying every day for the last 3 years. WebRTC, when it was first released, it was released as a browser-based software solution for doing Skype-type calls, sending video, audio back and forth between 2 points. Essentially, you can put Skype in the browser for any kind of web app. It's open source. The makers of it want the JavaScript community to use it and to build it into their applications. It's peer-to-peer. There's no central server that all the media has to go through. When we were doing this kind of thing, all these different connections came from different parts of the world, different parts of the country. They all get fed into a central server, a media server, that mixes it down into this multi-view stuff and spits it back out to everybody. With WebRTC, there is no server, or there doesn't have to be. It's by default peer-to-peer. And that means the media, the audio visuals go right from one person to another. There's nothing in the middle. It can be seen as an expansion of LiveLab. What LiveLab used to be is mostly about sending data back and forth, socket I/O, different kinds of WebSockets that allow for applications to talk to each other. This is finally the introduction of a usable, flexible media into that environment. Does that sound about right?
Audio video.
Yeah. It still has the VoIP protocols. This industry is still in there, but it has a JavaScript interface. So you're using a lot of the same tried and true technology that teleconferencing units we're working with, but now you can interact with it with the same kind of language as you would build a website. So today, it's widely used. Google Hangouts, Cisco Spark are both some widely used and robust frameworks that use WebRTC. But something else that's interesting is Jitsi Meet. That's something that we ran into a lot when we were over in Belarus, me and Billy, hanging out with Belarus Free Theater. Because WebRTC is peer-to-peer and there's no central server and it goes over secure, right, HTTPS, that means that it's much harder for people to listen to. There's none of that middle man that someone can tap into and grab your media out of. It's much more secure, so in a lot of sensitive areas, WebRTC is useful, and Jitsi meets a good example of that. But it's still considered experimental. WebRTC is still a developing protocol. It's not yet reached full maturity. You can expect changes. If you're going to build something with WebRTC, next year, next month, you might have to change a lot of your code because the standards are still in progress. So I started to dabble. So 2013, 2014, 2015, every time I had some spare chance, I started to try out some JavaScript finally. I'm not a coder, I'm an AV guy, right? I know my cables, I know how to frame a dancer, I know how to mix, if you need someone to mic a drum set, I can do that for you. But JavaScript was new to me. Thinking about building my own application, still very new to me. So I started to dabble and experiment. Culture Hub is a really nice place where you can get away with that kind of thing. This is a piece called Internet of Strings. Come on. It's a guitar with a lot of steel plates resting up and mounted to the guitar, touching the strings. It has an interface. This is a P5JS interface. That's something that was developed at ITP, isn't it? P5JS?
Around that.
Around it, yeah. Sending control over socket I/O to the guitar, sending sound through the guitar, essentially a telematic reverb chamber, and then using a WebRTC client to capture that audio and send it back to the user. Right? This is my first foray into getting into what WebRTC might be capable of, how to use it in a strange, flexible condition. Certainly not the kind of thing that you'd be able to do with a teleconferencing codec. I mean, I'm putting all the software in a little Raspberry Pi and mounted on the guitar. I can't do that with Polycom, right? I can't do that with Cisco. So this is the kind of thing where I actually start to see how flexible, how interesting of a tool it was. But like I said, not a coder, needed a lot of work. So enter Olivia Jack. She's a very talented front-end coder mostly, but really knows her sockets. And she helped Culture Hub develop the first LiveLab prototype. Right, this is when we finally understood, okay, this technology is real, it's useful. Let's actually try to build something real with it that we can share with other groups and do some productions with. So Olivia Jack came in and really started to develop the first version of what LiveLab has become, or is becoming. The first prototype was based off of simple WebRTC. That's sort of a JavaScript library, an early experiment in sort of a JavaScript simplified API that people can use and build into their websites. The prototype was nice for having any number of peers. You can add as many different points as you'd like as far as your bandwidth goes. You know, if your bandwidth can deal with it, you can have as many people join your call as you'd like. The video for the first time was free of the interface. Finally, no more overlays. Finally, we can take the video out and just give it to the audience without having to clean it up or do a screen capture or get rid of any of this control production stuff that I need to see as the operator, but I don't want to show my audience. It could I/O with software and actually send data in and out of it and control other pieces of software on the other end. This is one of the most delicious things about WebRTC is it has a data channel. Right now, I have a band in Seoul, and they have all these mics, and they're mixing that for my room. I'm asking a sound operator in Seoul to mix that band for my venue. They don't know what it sounds like in my venue. I have to tell them, could you turn the bass up a little? Could you turn the guitar down a little? I have to actually communicate that with words. Isn't it nice to just be able to send the controls and mix it myself and control their audio desk? This is the kind of stuff that we actually saw the realization of with the first prototype. That's the data channel there. And other software could be used too. Other kinds of video and audio software feed into this. So there's still some problems with it. Simple WebRTC, it's a nice library, it's easy to start off with, but it's okay. Lots of stuff that we didn't have control over. I couldn't change the bandwidth that was taken up. I couldn't really add another video feed easily from my room. I had to create a whole other window. It wasn't really an easy library to work with. Much less quality and much more latency than a teleconferencing codec. Very much because I couldn't control the bandwidth, how much of our pipe it was taking up. The video was still trapped in the browser. Even though it was released from the interface, it was still in the browser. It was still inside of Chrome. And hardware problems. WebRTC, when it talks to your hardware, doesn't always know how many ports you have on your hardware. If I take a Motu audio ingest and plug it into this Mac, it'll read the first two just fine. But try to tell it to read port 5 and 6 On your audio ingest, it's not going to be able to do that. It doesn't know, it assumes stereo. So I had to start building from scratch. That means taking LiveLab and building it, all different sort of one-offs, cobbling things together, seeing what it can do, seeing how I could bring it down to something really simple that we could finally just customize to our needs and our production-to-production desires. I decided to use Electron as a framework. That way I can build a native application that just lives on a laptop and doesn't have to be put onto a web server. Right? It's just one application I can give to somebody, they install it, and then we can communicate. For the last couple of months, I've been pushing this and getting myself, and finally, okay, maybe I'm a coder. Maybe I'm a coder. And then just last month, we actually put it out into production with Camera Obscura. First time we used WebRTC in a real theater setting. The new version, simple to access the protocols. I can reach down into the VoIP, the VoIP protocols, and actually mess with how these sessions are set up between different points, changing things like the bandwidth or the number of channels. There's a local signaling server. It's all on the laptop, so there's no web maintenance. I don't worry about a web server at all. Electron provides a lot of layout controls. Just this morning, I realized that I had to use my Thunderbolt port on the MacBook in order to ingest the Ethernet cable so I could have a good connection with the network here. That means I couldn't use another dongle to send VGA to the other monitor, so I had to get I had to get a Matrox triple head and plug that in so I could feed the other two monitors. I whipped it together. I had a new different kind of display. I did a little bit of coding, and no problem. Right? Electron actually allows you to have a lot of control over the displays that are connected to your central computer. This is very valuable for theater work, for actually controlling the visuals of architecture. Improved hardware integration, screens and ports, UDP ports, of course, but also, like I was saying, that the screens are plugged in. And just recently, siphon input. Oh yeah, this is exciting. we're working with a fellow named Anton.
Let's just call him Vade.
Vade, yeah. Anton, he goes by the moniker Vade. He was one of the creators of Siphon. He actually figured out how to get a direct Siphon input into WebRTC. This is a big deal for us. That means that we can play with other visual software, you know, VDMX and Max, and pretty much all these different beautiful tools that are really native to digital visuals today. It works on other people's machines that they already have. We don't got to sell you nothing. There's no hardware. Here's the application. It works. Maybe, you know, we'll have to play with it, but generally it works. Still some problems. Without hosted signaling, you need a static IP on one of the ends so that you can call each other. Static IP is important, so that's public and everybody, you know, all the different routers between me and my partner can find each other. But deploying a web server is still rather simple. It's really just a basic WebSocket server, and it's something that we could do, you know, if we needed to. Every window in Electron has a unique process. That means that sharing the video from one window to another is kind of tricky. But I've been looking around. I think I have a workaround that, essentially telling the windows to call each other and do a little inter-computer session. Siphon output is really difficult. While you can get the Siphon input without much of a hassle, getting it out of the display and into your QLab session so that you can, or your Mad Mapper so you can map it to your architecture, still a bit of a problem. But I think we'll get there. I think there are some good solutions on the horizon. You can't quite yet specify audio channels on your audio hard gear or your audio hardware. But once again, I think that there are some really nice node modules out there that'll allow us to do that. Mostly the thing just needs to scale. We just have to build it up so it's no longer these one-off things you build per production. It's just an application that you can use across productions as a general operating tool. So, those are all of the technical stuff. That's what I went through. That was the growth of this product. You can see we spend a lot of time into it, but why do we do that? Well, why is this so important? For me, inter-venue, like I said, it's multi-audience. That means it's inter-community. We're not just building a tool that allows for artists to collaborate with each other. We're building a tool that allows for audiences to collaborate with each other. And audiences are not just random people in a room. Right? The reason why you all are here is not because you all have shared interests. You're all coming from the same kind of spot. Right? You are a community, even if you don't really know each other. You're sharing something together. Right? You're here for a reason. Right? You didn't just walking through the door off the street because you smell good bagels, right? So when you have these different people and venues together, you're connecting communities, right? The people actually share these spaces. These venues aren't just theaters. I'm talking about churches and town halls and schools. I'm really excited about this. We live in a time of increased self-segregation, right? When you have a bunch of white people that just hang out with white people, or Christians that just hang out with Christians, or wealthy people that just go to parties with other wealthy people, that's a problem. I think it's a serious political problem if you think about what's going on in the world today. And I think inter-community establishments and trying to find a way for these communities to connect again might make a big difference with some of these issues that we're facing. That's what I really want to talk about. Any questions?
So you had bolded up there to scale, right? The
Yeah.
Slide. What's your solution for that? Obviously, it's a major problem for something like this. If you're gonna go inter-community, right, it has to be able to scale. So how do you plan on doing that?
I'm going to call Olivia. You might remember a little while ago, Olivia Jack, we helped us build the first prototype. She's really good at this, at making a front end that can scale up, where you can constantly add more channels, add more OSC, connect to different venues. I can build an application that connects to one venue at a time, and I designate and specify the number of displays and where they go. But with a little bit more work and some conversations with some other coders, we can build a system that you'll be able to add and remove these different connections at will. That's the kind of scaling I'm talking about. So that's just a very simple interface, it's readable. It takes some learning, maybe like QLab level of complexity, but you'll actually develop something that is usable across different partners and collaborators.
So we're hoping that a community will develop around this tool, and people will start, customizing it, making different modules for it, I think, and hopefully it will,
Have you tested with multiple communities? I mean, that's what I'm saying with scaling, right? There are many applications, just tech level,
Yeah.
they have a limitation as
Yeah.
to what they can do, right?
Yeah.
So what type of testing have you done to see if this is even scalable?
Well, the first LiveLab prototype is the version of scalability that I have in mind.
Okay.
I think some of the problems you might be talking about are, it's difficult to talk generally. Challenge me, give me a specific production problem. And
What's the maximum number of people you've had simultaneously using it?
Using a LiveLab? I think 6. So when
How do you get it to 10?
How do you get it to 10? Well, if you go past 10 is a good number actually. If you read the literature on this stuff, WebRTC does actually have a problem around 10 peers. The bandwidth gets too heavy, it starts to drain the processing of your computer. Better computer, more peers, or you might actually have to have one of those media servers that's living in the web that can actually take your different peers and distribute them properly. Once again, it's not quite secure. You wouldn't use that in all kinds of situations, but it is the kind of web server that you could develop on your own terms. It's not some proprietary thing you get from Cisco.
Yeah.
It's something that you build for your production.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it publicly available at this time, or are you still in beta?
Yeah, the early prototype's publicly available. I hope to actually have the next beta out, the next real good version out, sometime before summer. I think we can pull that off. We can talk about doing one-offs. That's you're around. But to have something that you can actually give to somebody else and use with other collaborators, not quite there. I hope around July.
Why am I just hearing about Siphon input?
It's very new.
I said, why am I just now hearing about Siphon input?
I haven't even. So Vade sent me the recipe.
When?
He's done it himself.
Okay.
Like 2 weeks ago, we were in the middle of
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago.
I'm kidding.
Real fresh. It was pretty simple. When we actually looked at the Chromium code, he found that the get user media, it was almost ready to listen to it. He just had to do a couple of things. Getting it out again, that's what I'm excited about. Yeah.
If you make a front-end client that's super fast, as you seem to have done, won't the biggest variable in this whole formula still be connection speed? Like via your ISP or whatever?
Yes, it is the biggest variable. You're right. If we have to pay more for data, that means not everybody can collaborate. And there are people who are going to be on the other side of that digital divide, they call it. This is upsetting. I'm worried about net neutrality. I'm worried about people with access being able to afford to do this kind of production, other people not. Right? This is going to be an issue. I think we're going to have to partner with groups to actually establish strong bandwidth in areas through other means that might not be the go-to ISP of an area. I think we might actually have to start to activate that on other fronts. Yeah, I'm concerned about that. But Culture Hub is not, we don't have a pixel fetish. You know, we're not audiophile. We're not the kind of people that need high resolution and lots of pixels. That's not our thing. We'll work with whatever connection we got. You know, we'll make it work. That's more that's closer to the philosophy that we'll use it right now.
And then you also will be able to eventually regulate the bandwidth per channel, right? So, you know, if you're working with people that are, and this is one of the hugest problems that we've always had, is like, you know, is working with what you've got, but then if you want to bring the lowest common denominator into something where you have other, you know, like a bigger infrastructure, bigger bandwidth, right? How do you integrate those things? And so now they're trying to work towards having one tool, one ecosystem, right? That's readily available. You know, they can just work right off of a browser, you know, and you know, and you can do the best that you can within the venue. So you could bring in someone with a low bandwidth situation into a venue circumstance that's, you know, highly polished, you know, circumstance, say here in our studio or in a venue here, which to this point has been challenging. You have to sort of use a variety of different tools and learn a whole new tool, and, you know. So
it's one of the exciting things about a lot of the people who are in the industry of telecommunications. They get excited about connecting their teleconferencing units with Skype. You know, we're excited too for different reasons, but same kind of thing. You have a low resource peer and a high resource peer. Just because they're using different kinds of interfaces doesn't mean they can't connect.
Thank you.
Yes, you got it.